Welcome back to The Talk. And now the row between Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch and ex-Post Office boss Henry Staunton has escalated further, with Staunton releasing a new meeting note that he claims proves he was told to stall compensation payments to postmasters. The former Post Office chairman's memo from a meeting on January the 5th last year records a top civil servant saying they should hobble into the election and not to rip off the Band-Aid in terms of its finances. Sarah Munby, who was then Permanent Secretary at the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, allegedly warned Staunton politicians do not necessarily like to confront reality and that now was not the time for dealing with long-term issues. This evening, Munby released a detailed rebuttal saying it is not true that I made any instruction, either explicitly or implicitly, to Mr Staunton to in any way delay compensation payments. Kemi Badenoch has said there was no evidence to support Staunton's claim and accused him of spreading made-up anecdotes. At Prime Minister's questions today, Keir Starmer called on the Prime Minister to commit to releasing correspondence relating to the row.
I appreciate that the Business Secretary has put the Prime Minister in a tricky position, but will he commit to investigating this matter properly, including whether that categorical statement was correct and why, rather than taking those accusations seriously, she accused a whistleblower of lying?
Mr Speaker, it is worth bearing in mind that, as the Business Secretary said on Monday, she asked Henry Staunton to step down after serious concerns were raised. But this is, on a matter of substance, one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in our nation's history.
Well, the PM was asked several times whether he wanted to repeat Kemi Badenoch's allegations, but he declined to do so. A couple of points on this. There's the obvious one that I've spoken to a couple of the postmasters many times, but even as recently as this week. I don't think people want to see this toing and froing and these rows between the Business Secretary and the former head. You know, it's undignified, it's not fair, it doesn't take us anywhere. But on that specific point, just to have a view on that, if the Business Secretary is lying on this, she is taking an enormous risk in doing this, in the sense that it's very possible, we've seen it so many times, that eventually something comes out that isn't, you know, a scribbled, unprovable note. It's something that firmly says, no, this did happen. So for her, and bearing in mind she has huge political ambitions, I think the idea that she would stand in Parliament, despite the privilege you get there, and tell a stack of porkies, I would find difficult to swallow. So if I was going into Paddy Power tomorrow, my money would be on Kemi as the one that's currently telling the truth.
So I'm certainly not going to say that she would knowingly stand in the Commons and tell a pack of lies. I'm sure she would not, but she may not have been privy to the relevant conversations. And my long experience in the way people phrase things and how things happen leads me instinctively to believe the claimant in this case. Mr Post Office guy. I just think it is not something you'd make up, and the particular words that he's used, you know, this idea of hobble along, it just sounds authentic to me. I think this did happen, but I think that Ms Badenoch knows that it's not provable. The precise he said, she said, exactly, you know, the nod, the wink, the kind of, you know, by the way, you know, just leave it till after the election. It's an aside, you know, it may not have been minuted, all of those things. I just don't think he's made this up.
I don't think...
for her, though.
I think it's eminently plausible, actually, from the language that's being used. Also, I understand he emailed himself and copied someone else in.
He copied the CEO in.
Indeed. So with his recollections of that call. Now, why would you do that? Is that proof that conversation actually happened? So it isn't.
But it adds to a picture, doesn't it?
It does. But also, look at Badenoch's rebuttal. It was really vociferous. So either she implicitly believes it, or
she's a great actor,
or she's going for it because she knows there's something to hide, and I don't know which of those it is.
I'm inclined to believe Henry Staunton on this one, and especially if he says that he emailed the memo, then, well, you know, it's 5 years ago. you'd think that maybe they could try and find an email trail, but then remember Boris Johnson couldn't find his own WhatsApps from his phone, so perhaps not. But I would. Why would he make this up? I just don't think
party political. Now I don't know if he's got any known affiliations to, for example, the opposition, and that would definitely slightly change my view.
Yeah, I don't think...
I just doesn't seem credible to me. And also, I don't attach a lot of value to what's been released this evening, which is a letter from one of the senior civil servants in the relevant department, who assures Ms Badenoch that this didn't happen. Well, she would say that.
Of course.
And she's Sarah Munby. I was looking her up. You know, she was a civil servant for a few years, and then she went off to McKinsey's, you know, the management consultant, for 15 years. And then she came back as a very senior, you know, head of department civil servant. And I was reading an interview that she'd done in Civil Service News or something.
Wow, thrilling.
That's how rock and roll I am.
I love that.
But the language she was using in that interview was very similar to the type of language that Henry Staunton was. You know, it was quite over the top. It was quite sort of. She was saying that she was a fangirl of certain types of sort of civil service behaviour.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
It was the kind of very non-civil servicey type of language.
Right.
And I thought that sounds like the same woman who Henry Staunton is quoting.
But does it not still, the bit that I still can't understand, and I know I mentioned this previously in the week, is that why would the government want to stall it?
I know, right?
It's in their interest
exactly,
not to.
Exactly. That's what's so strange. I mean, the way Henry Staunton's expressed it is purely financial. They just don't have the money. But
correct.
But surely it also is about political acumen and how well you deal with those things. So they don't want to rock the boat before an election.
And it's because
so that makes
the Treasury doesn't want to cough out. And her quote was, Sarah Munby said, politicians do not necessarily like to confront reality.
Yeah.
As in, she was saying to Henry Staunton, you know, I could try and get them to concentrate on this, but they don't want to concentrate on this. Well, they don't want to give you the money.
Yeah.